is Josh. We're going to go on a little journey through the Chicago River's past, present, and potential future. So, my fellow Bank of Americans, have you all thought about what this river might look like 200 years ago?
A lot less concrete.
A lot less concrete. I like that you pointed that out. Thank you for doing that. So yes, there was not concrete lining the banks of the river. In fact, this river was a marshy, slow-moving, and often seasonal wetland with lots of aquatic plants. So, despite its modest appearance at the time, there were people using this river too. The Council of the Three Fires, which is a group of related tribes that spoke kind of similar languages, but with distinct backgrounds, they used this area for trade. Those tribes we know now as the Ojibwe, Potawatomi, and Odawa people. So they used it for trade and also food, as well as medicine. And actually there's one plant in particular that's very important to this region. Does anybody know how the city of Chicago got its name? Can anybody guess for me?
Isn't it like
Stinky onion, yes, awesome. I feel like every Chicagoan should know that. It's great that there's some knowledge here in this group, so thank you so much for that. Yes, so more specifically, I mentioned the Council of the Three Fires. So in that language family, they had this term for this river. It was named after a smelly onion that grew along its banks. So basically they're like, yeah, that's an area with the smelly onion. And that word was something like Chicakwin. And then over time, there was sort of a game of telephone that got played where, you know, that changed to Chicago based on like Europeans hearing the name and things like that. So the Europeans wanted to use this river for a lot of the same reasons the indigenous people did, for trade. And this river got modified in a lot of ways to do that. For example, we talked about the dredging, the straightening, just a lot of things happening to the river. And they did that to maximize what this area already had. So back in the late 1600s, Joliet and Marquette, those two French explorers, they heard about from some people downriver just how useful this area was. It's basically river navigation-wise like the heart of the country. So you can think of it like that because Chicago's like the heart, the rivers around Chicago are like the arteries. And let me explain why that is. So, if you think about the Great Lakes as a passageway to the sea, because that's what they are, if you take them east to the St. Lawrence Seaway, you'll eventually reach the Atlantic Ocean. If you take the sanitary ship canal towards the Mississippi River, you'll eventually get to the Mississippi River, where you end up on the western half of the eastern United States, if that makes sense. Is everybody following me? Alright, awesome, great. I know it's a windy day out there. So, that being said, we're going to head out to an area that saw a lot of this modification happening. Of course, this area is called the North Avenue Turning Basin, and it is surrounded by concrete. We call it a turning basin because it's actually quite a self-explanatory name if you think about it. This is where barges in the river used to turn around because they were so big, they were so long and loaded up with material, and they couldn't just turn around everywhere. They had to have these special areas that were dug out to be able to turn around. So that's why it's so wide out here. You'll notice that in the rest of the river, it's not quite as wide. So just a lot of industrial history. We're gonna head down towards this bridge now. Abby's gonna help lead the way. Abby, are you cool with that? Great. And as we're going, this is really important, guys, because you're not just here to take in information. I also really would love your help if you help me to find some wild species. So, did everybody see those little booklets on your life jacket? All right. So those booklets are a little guide for you. They're like what we call a field guide. So it has some information about some species that you're likely to see here. So if you ever see a bird and you're like, oh, well, bird's just a bird to me. It's not just a bird, it's a species, and maybe you can identify that species by looking at your booklet. So I'm going to keep a tally here on this little tally sheet, and as we go towards Abby, towards Cherry Avenue Bridge, please look for things and let me know. or just one of the other facilitators. All right, thank you so much. Now head out towards Abby.
Josh, I see a turtle.
Awesome, I think that's a painted turtle. Write that down.
I see a turtle. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 geese. Yes, we count the geese.
All right, 6 Canada.
All right, everybody. So you're gonna follow me out into the turning basin. We're gonna stick together just like a